I still remember the night of my blind lesbian date, as if it happened just yesterday. It was a stormy evening, the kind where the wind howled like a mournful ghost, and the rain beat against the windows like impatient fingertips. I had agreed to meet her at a quaint little cafe tucked away in the heart of the city, a place I'd never been to before. Little did I know that this seemingly ordinary blind date would turn into a nightmare that would haunt me for the rest of my life. As I walked into the dimly lit cafe, I spotted her sitting at a corner table, bathed in the soft glow of a flickering candle. Her name was Emily, and from the moment our eyes met, I was captivated. Her long, ebony hair framed her face in wild tendrils, and her eyes, the deepest shade of brown, seemed to hold secrets only whispered to the darkest of nights. She smiled warmly as I approached, a smile that sent a shiver down my spine. "Hi, you must be Sarah," she said, her voice like honey laced with something mysterious. "Yes, that's me," I replied, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. We settled into conversation effortlessly, the hours slipping by as we talked about our lives, our dreams, and our deepest fears. Emily was magnetic, drawing me in with her charisma and charm. It wasn't long before our hands touched, sending sparks of electricity through me. As the evening wore on, Emily leaned in close, her lips brushing my ear. "I have a surprise for you," she whispered, her breath sending a tingling sensation down my spine. "What kind of surprise?" I asked, my heart racing. She smiled again, that enigmatic smile that seemed to hold secrets. "You'll see soon enough." With that, Emily signaled for the waiter and settled the bill. We stepped out into the stormy night, the rain soaking us within seconds. Emily hailed a taxi, and we climbed in, the wet leather seats sticking to our clothes. The ride was silent, and I couldn't help but wonder where Emily was taking me. The rain hammered on the windows, blurring the world outside into a watery mess. I couldn't see anything beyond the glass, and that sense of being blind, of being at her mercy, sent a shiver down my spine. Finally, the taxi pulled up in front of an old, dilapidated building. It looked abandoned, a relic from a forgotten time. The rain seemed to intensify, pounding on the roof of the car like 1,000 drummers. "Where are we?" I asked, my voice quivering. Emily simply smiled and stepped out of the taxi. I followed her, my shoes sinking into puddles as we approached the building. The door creaked open as she pushed it, and a gust of cold, damp air rushed out to greet us. Inside, the building was even more unsettling. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, and the floors were littered with debris. It felt like a place where forgotten memories went to die. I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. "Emily, what are we doing here?" I asked, my voice trembling. She turned to face me, her eyes gleaming in the dim light. "I told you, I have a surprise for you." With that, Emily led me deeper into the building. We climbed a rickety staircase that groaned with every step. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to dance around us, whispering secrets I couldn't quite catch. Finally, we reached a small room at the end of a long, dimly lit hallway. The room was empty except for a single chair placed in the center. It looked like something out of a horror movie, and panic began to claw at my chest. "Emily, this isn't funny anymore," I stammered. "I want to leave." But she simply smiled and gestured for me to sit in the chair. Reluctantly, I obeyed, my heart pounding in my chest. Emily circled around me, her footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. She produced a blindfold from her bag, a black satin mask that seemed out of place in this decaying room. "What's that for?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You'll see," she replied, her voice dripping with anticipation. I felt her fingers slip the blindfold over my eyes, plunging me into darkness. Panic surged through me as I realized I was completely at her mercy, unable to see or defend myself. "Emily, please," I begged. "Take this off. This isn't funny anymore." But she didn't respond. Instead, I heard her moving around the room, the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. My heart pounded in my ears as my imagination ran wild with terrifying possibilities. Then I felt it. Something cold and metallic against my wrists, followed by a click. Handcuffs. Panic coursed through me as I struggled against my restraints. "Emily, what are you doing?" I cried, my voice desperate. She leaned in close, her lips brushing against my ear once more. "I told you, I have a surprise for you. A blind date you'll never forget." The room fell silent, and all I could hear was the sound of my own ragged breathing. Seconds felt like hours as I sat there, helpless and terrified. Then, I felt it again. Something sharp and cold against my skin. It moved slowly, tracing a line down my arm. I gasped, feeling the sting of a blade as it cut into my flesh. Tears welled up behind the blindfold as the pain intensified. "Emily, please," I whimpered. "Let me go, please." But she didn't stop. The blade continued its torturous journey, carving a web of agony into my skin. I screamed, my cries echoing in the empty room, but there was no one to hear them. Just when I thought I couldn't bear it any longer, the blindfold was ripped from my eyes. I blinked against the sudden brightness, disoriented and in pain. And then I saw it. The room was covered in writing. Blood-red letters scrawled across the walls, forming words and phrases I couldn't comprehend. Symbols and sigils adorned every surface, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own. I turned to Emily, my voice trembling. "What is this? What's happening?" She stood before me, her eyes now devoid of warmth and charm. "I told you, Sarah. This is your blind date. A date with the unknown. A date with fear itself." I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making. A web of terror spun by Emily's twisted desires. As the room seemed to close in around me, the symbols on the walls began to glow, casting an eerie light that bathed everything in a surreal, otherworldly radiance. And then, I heard it. Whispers, like 1,000 voices speaking in hushed tones, filling the room with an incomprehensible cacophony. I closed my eyes, hoping it was all just a horrible dream, but when I opened them again, Emily was gone. I was alone in that nightmarish room, surrounded by the haunting words and symbols that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. I don't know how long I sat there, trapped in that living nightmare. But eventually, the whispers faded, and the symbols on the walls dimmed. The pain from my wounds throbbed, a cruel reminder that this horror was all too real. Finally, I was able to free myself from the handcuffs, and I stumbled out of that accursed room and into the stormy night. I ran until I found help, until I was safe from that twisted, bone-chilling date with Emily. To this day, I still don't know who or what Emily was, or how she could have orchestrated such a nightmarish ordeal. All I know is that I will forever be haunted by the memory of that blind, lesbian date, a date that took me to the darkest depths of fear and left me forever changed.